Welcome to another episode of the Part 145 EASA training series from Phoenix Way Academy. Hello, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Sam.
Well, in this deep dive, we're going to continue our fascinating journey through 145A.45 maintenance data.
Understanding maintenance data isn't just like ticking boxes or knowing some abstract rules. It's really the invisible thread connecting every single bolt, every wire, every system on an aircraft to its safety and integrity. It's the bedrock, truly. So our mission today really is to simplify these often complex regulations, turn them into clear, actionable insights, help you grasp why every tiny detail matters so much in aviation maintenance. And we'll be extra careful, as always, with pronouncing numbers, especially those clause references, because, well, precision and clarity are just non-negotiable here.
They really are. And I think about the sheer volume of data involved in keeping just one aircraft airworthy. It's pretty mind-boggling. But EASA, through regulations like this one, 145.A.45, gives us the framework to manage it all. So let's get into it. Let's unpack this absolutely crucial section. 145.A.45 maintenance data.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then, the foundation. Clause 145.A.45. This really lays the groundwork for everything else. It sets out the fundamental expectation. The text says, the organization shall hold and use applicable current maintenance data which is necessary in the performance of maintenance, including modifications and repairs. Applicable means relevant to any aircraft, component, or process specified in the organization's terms of approval and in any associated capability list. And it continues. In the case of maintenance data provided by the person or organization requesting the maintenance, the organization shall hold such data when the work is in progress.
Right. So, Sarah, when we talk about applicable and current, it sounds pretty straightforward, doesn't it? But what's the common pitfall here? Is it just about having some data, or is there that layer of precision aviation demands that, sometimes catches people out?
That's a really good question, because it's absolutely not just about having any old data lying around. It's about the right data and, crucially, the latest, most up-to-date data for the exact task you're doing right now. This isn't a suggestion. It's a hard requirement. Precision is key. And that extends to any data the customer provides. Say, an airline brings in their aircraft. You can't just assume they have it or that it's current. You, the maintenance organization, must hold on to that specific data while the work is actually in progress.
Yeah, and to really hammer home that precision, imagine you're working on let's say a complex repair for a very specific model of aircraft engine. This clause means your organization absolutely must have the latest revision of the engine maintenance manual, the EMM, specifically for that exact engine model, not just a generic engine manual that looks similar. And like you said, if an airline gives you a unique STC, a supplemental type certificate, maybe for a repair scheme or a modification, that precise, unique data has to be right there, accessible throughout the entire repair job. It's all about that granularity, isn't it?
Exactly. So the big takeaway from this first part, this foundational clause A, is that it really emphasizes the intense precision needed for applicable and current data. And it clearly spells out the maintenance organization's critical responsibility for handling customer-supplied data meticulously right when the work is happening. Think of it like having the exact up-to-the-minute blueprint at your fingertips, or you just don't start the work.
Okay, so we've established why having the right data is so critical, but then the obvious next question is, well, what exactly is the right data? And that leads us neatly into clause 145.A.45b, which clarifies this by, interestingly, pointing us elsewhere.
Now, the clause itself reads, applicable maintenance data is the data specified in point MA 401B of Annex I, Part M, or in point MLA 401B of Annex VB, Part ML, as applicable.
And what's really fascinating here, and you see this a lot with EASA regs, is how this clause acts like a signpost. It explicitly tells you the full definition isn't just sitting here in Part 145. Instead, it directs you to other key EASA regulations. Part M, typically for your complex aircraft, and Part ML for lighter aircraft. It shows how interconnected everything is. You can't just read one section in isolation. They all weave together to build that complete safety picture. It's quite clever, really.
It is. And to dig even deeper into that definition, the guidance material, GM 14145.A.45b, gets even more specific about what we should consider. It points us to specific sections within those other parts, saying, the provisions of GM1 MA 401B3 and B4, GM1 MA 401B4, and GM1 MLA 401B apply.
Okay, so what does that mean in practice? It means applicable maintenance data isn't just, say, the main manual. It's a whole basket of documents. We're talking essential stuff like any applicable airworthiness, directives ADs, those mandatory mods, service bulletins, SBs from the manufacturers, specific repair manuals from the design organization, detailed overhaul instructions, and even, importantly, any instructions the maintenance organization develops itself, maybe for minor repairs where the manufacturer hasn't provided specific guidance. It's designed to be comprehensive, a safety net, really, so no critical info gets missed.
Yeah, a good example to make it real. Imagine a brand new airworthiness directive, an AD, suddenly gets issued for a component your workshop services all the time. Well, bam, that AD immediately becomes applicable maintenance data for any work you do on that component from that moment on. You can't just use the old manual and plan to update later. You have to integrate that new directive into your process right away.
Yeah.
It's now part of the required data set.
Absolutely. So the key lesson here is that the definition of applicable data is broad. It covers a whole range of technical documents, manufacturer stuff, regulatory mandates, even your own internal procedures, and all of them are crucial for staying compliant and, more importantly, keeping things safe.
Okay, moving on to a really critical aspect. What happens when the data itself has a problem? It's inaccurate or maybe just unclear. Clause 145.A.45 tells us how to handle these situations: inaccuracies, ambiguities, incompleteness.
Right, and the clause states, the organization shall establish procedures to ensure that if inaccurate, incomplete, or ambiguous procedure, practice, information, or maintenance instruction is found in the maintenance data used by maintenance personnel, it is recorded as part of the internal safety reporting scheme referred to in point 145.A.202 and notified to the author of the maintenance data.
This clause really empowers the maintenance teams. It highlights their proactive responsibility. It's not about just blindly following instructions. It's about actively spotting flaws. Could be a typo, missing info, or maybe instructions that are just vague and leave room for error. And critically, it links this discovery directly to the internal safety reporting scheme. So finding an error isn't just a quick note in the margin. It becomes a formal safety report. This ensures the problem is tracked, documented, and crucially reported back to whoever wrote the data in the first place. It creates that vital feedback loop.
Exactly. And the AMC, the acceptable means of compliance, AMC 14145.A.45 really adds more detail on the procedure. It emphasizes, the referenced procedure should ensure that when maintenance personnel discover inaccurate, incomplete, or ambiguous information in the maintenance data, they should record the details as part of the internal safety reporting scheme specified in point 145.A.202. And it says, the procedure should then ensure that the Part 145 approved maintenance organization notifies the problem to the author of the maintenance data in a timely manner. A record of such communications should be retained until such time as the author has clarified the issue. The reference procedure should be specified in the MOE.
Yeah, this AMC really drills down into the procedural steps. First, log it internally via your safety reporting system. That's step one. Then, critically, you must notify the original author, the manufacturer, the designer in a timely way. No sitting on it. And your organization has to keep meticulous records of this chat, this communication, until the issue is fixed, the data corrected. And the whole process, every step, must be clearly laid out in your maintenance organization exposition, the MOE. It's all about that traceable, continuous improvement.
Think about this scenario. A technician's trying to install a component, right? And they realize the diagram in the manual shows a part facing the wrong way. It's clearly an error that tech doesn't just, flip it around and move on. They must log this issue formally through the internal safety reporting system. Then the organization has the responsibility to quickly notify the manual's publisher about the mistake. And they keep a record of that notification until a corrected manual page or official clarification comes back. It's that closed-loop system we mentioned, designed purely for safety and learning.
Absolutely. So the real genius here isn't just catching errors. It's embedding this constant learning mechanism right into the core of aviation maintenance. Every reported issue isn't just a problem. It's a prompt for the whole industry to improve, a feedback loop making the data that underpins everything safer and more accurate over time.
Okay, let's move to the next section. Clause 145.A.45D. This one touches on a, let's say, sensitive area, modifying the maintenance instructions themselves.
It specifies.
Yeah.
The organization may only modify maintenance instructions in accordance with the procedure that is specified in the MOE, and continues. With respect to changes to maintenance instructions, the organization shall demonstrate that they result in equivalent or improved maintenance standards and shall inform the author of the maintenance instructions of such changes. And there's a key clarification. For the purposes of this point, maintenance instructions mean instructions on how to carry out a particular maintenance task. They exclude the engineering design of repairs and modifications.
Yeah, when I first read that about modifying instructions, I admit I did a double take. Wait, they can just change the manual. But then you dig into the specifics and you see how tightly controlled it actually is. The absolute key is demonstrating, proving, that any change keeps the standard the same, or even better, improves it, and, super important, the original author must be told about the change. Plus, there's that crucial distinction. This only applies to how you do a task, the procedure, not the engineering design of a repair or mod. That's a whole different ballgame requiring separate approvals.
Exactly. And the AMC 145.A.45 gives us the strict protocol we need to follow. It's quite detailed. The reference procedure should address the need for a practical demonstration to the compliance monitoring personnel. Depending on the nature of the modification, a risk assessment may be required. When satisfied, the compliance monitoring personnel should approve the modified maintenance instruction and ensure that the author is informed. It also mentions needing traceability, paper, or electronic, and that modified instructions should only be used in specific cases. A, where the original intent can be carried out in a more practical or more efficient manner. B, where the original intent cannot be achieved. C, for the use of alternative tools equipment. And then there's that big important note. Critical design configuration control limitations, CVCCL, are airworthiness limitations. Any modification linked to CVCCL constitutes a change to a type certificate that should be approved in accordance with Part 21 or Part 21 Light.
Wow, okay, so that AMC really spells out the hoops you need to jump through. It's not a casual change. It requires a practical demo to your own compliance people, maybe even a full risk assessment to prove it's safe and effective, then internal approval, then telling the author, and complete traceability. And crucially, it limits why you can modify. Only for practicality, efficiency, if the original way is impossible, or to use different tools, it's very specific.
And that important note about CVCCL critical design configuration control limitations is absolutely vital. These aren't just regular instructions, they're airworthiness limitations baked into the design certification. Messing with instructions tied to a CVCCL, that's considered a major change, like altering the aircraft's type certificate. So it needs that higher level Part 21 or Part 21 Light approval. It underlines how critical these specific instructions are. You don't touch them lightly.
Right. A perfect real-world example might be, say, an organization finds a step in a manual requires a super rare, maybe obsolete, specialized tool. Hard to find, expensive. They might develop a procedure using a more common alternative tool, but to do that, they have to demonstrate to their compliance team it's just as safe and effective. Maybe do a risk assessment, get it approved internally, then notify the manual's author. Now, if that instruction happened to relate to a CVCCL, maybe something like ensuring correct wire separation inside a fuel tank, that simple tool workaround suddenly needs formal Part 21 approval. Big difference.
So the key takeaway here is, yes, you can modify instructions, but it's under very tight control. Traceability, internal approval, telling the author all mandatory, and anything touching CVCCL. That ramps up the regulatory scrutinies significantly. It's not about making things easier, it's about making them better or solving an impossibility, but always safely.
Okay, next up, let's talk about the work card system. Clause 145.A.45EU. This is about the daily task instructions for the technicians on the floor.
The regulation says, the organization shall provide a common work card or worksheet system to be used throughout the relevant parts of the organization, end quote. It adds, in addition, the organization shall either accurately transcribe the maintenance data onto such work cards or worksheets or make precise reference to the particular maintenance task contained in that maintenance data. It covers electronic systems too. Work cards and worksheets may be computer-generated and held in an electronic database that is adequately protected against unauthorized alteration and for which there is a backup, updated within 24 hours. End quote. And for big jobs, complex or long maintenance tasks shall be transcribed and subdivided into clear stages. When the organization provides maintenance services to an aircraft operator which requires its own work card system to be used, then such system may be used. In that case, the organization shall establish a procedure to ensure correct completion.
Right, so this clause is pushing for standardization, a common work card system within relevant parts of the organization. It gives you options. Transcribe the data fully onto the card, or just make a precise reference back to the source manual task. It also sets pretty strict rules for electronic systems. Security against tampering is key, plus that 24-hour backup requirement. That's quite specific. And the breakdown of complex tasks into clear stages is vital for tracking and sign-offs. Plus, if you use a customer system, you still need your own procedure to make sure it's used correctly.
Yeah, and the AMC 145.A.45 clarifies that relevant parts bit and adds more detail. It says the relevant parts means, as appropriate, aircraft base maintenance, aircraft line maintenance, specialized services, component workshops. Therefore, a common system should be used, for example, throughout the engine workshops, which may be different from that in base maintenance. It also details what should be on the cards. Differentiate and specify, disassembly, accomplishment of tasks, reassembly and testing, as well as the error capturing method, for example, independent inspection. And mention supplementary cards for long tasks. It brings in human factors too, referencing 145.A.65A and defines complex tasks, multidiscipline, multi-shift, special tools, etc., saying subdivision should allow for interruption. Finally, it repeats that if you use an operator system, you need to assess it against your own procedures.
Okay, so that AMC clears up the relevant parts thing. It doesn't mean one single system for absolutely everything, but consistency within an area. Like all engine shops use the same system, but base maintenance might use another. Makes sense. The cards themselves need to be really detailed disassembly, the task itself, reassembly, testing, even specifying things like independent inspections. For really long jobs, you might need extra cards to track who did what across shifts. And considering human factors when designing the cards is smart, making them clear, easy to follow, reduces errors. Defining complex tasks helps know when that detailed subdivision is needed, especially indicating where work can pause. And that point about assessing an operator system is important. You have to ensure their system still meets your procedural needs, especially for complex task breakdowns. It's about maintaining your standard.
Exactly. Think about, say, a major landing gear overhaul. That's definitely complex, right? Multiple steps, different specialists, hydraulics, structures, NDT maybe, and it could span days or weeks. The work cards for that job would be meticulously broken down into clear, logical stages where work could be safely interrupted. This ensures every single step gets signed off properly and progress is tracked accurately, even if different techs work on it across different shifts. And if, say, your airline client insists you use their fancy electronic work card system, your maintenance organization still has to check it thoroughly, verify it meets all your own internal rules, like that 24-hour backup we mentioned. The chain of accountability can't be broken.
Right. So the big picture here is standardization where it makes sense, really detailed task breakdown, especially for complex jobs, and super robust management of electronic systems. Plus, thinking about the human element in design and carefully integrating customer systems when needed. It all boils down to effective work control and boosting safety right there on the hangar floor.
Okay, nearly there. Let's talk about actually getting hold of this data. Clause 145.A.45F is quite direct, almost deceptively simple maybe. It just says, the organization shall ensure that all applicable maintenance data is readily available for use when required by maintenance personnel.
Sounds basic, doesn't it? But it's so fundamental. The right information has to be right there, easily accessible when the technician needs it. Not locked in an office down the corridor, not buried on a server that takes ages to log into. It needs to be at hand, because in aviation maintenance, delays can introduce risk.
Exactly. And the AMC for 145.A.45F gives us a bit more flavor on what readily available means in practice. He explains. Data being made available means that the data should be available in close proximity to the aircraft being maintained for supervisors, mechanics, and certifying staff to study. It covers tech too. Where computer systems are used, the number of computer terminals should be sufficient to enable easy access, unless the computer system can produce paper copies. Where microfilm or microfiche reader printers are used, a similar requirement is applicable.
So readily available literally means physically close to the job, near the aircraft, near the component bench. It's about practicality. If you're using digital data, you need enough terminals or tablets out on the floor for easy access relative to how much work is going on. Or the system needs to let people print copies quickly if needed. The goal is just to remove any hassle or delay in getting that vital information right when someone needs it to make a decision or perform a step correctly.
Yeah, picture this. A mechanic is troubleshooting some tricky avionics fault up on the flight deck. They need the wiring diagrams from the AMM, like now. Readily available means they have, say, a rugged tablet with the electronic manuals loaded right there with them, or maybe there's a dedicated workshop terminal just a few steps away. It doesn't mean having to stop work, Walk across the hangar to a central tech library, find the manual, find the page. You get the idea. Efficiency and accuracy go hand in hand here.
Absolutely. So the critical insight, accessibility isn't just nice to have, it's essential for efficient and safe maintenance. Getting the right info, right place, right time, it's an operational must.
Okay, last point in this section. Clause 145.A.45. This tackles the constant challenge of keeping all this data current. It's a never-ending job, isn't it? It states, the organization shall establish a procedure to ensure that maintenance data it controls is kept up to date. Fair enough. But then it covers customer data. In the case of operator customer-controlled and provided maintenance data, the organization shall be able to show that either it has written confirmation from the operator customer that all such maintenance data is up to date, or it has work orders specifying the amendment status, or it can show that it is on the operator customer maintenance data amendment list.
Right, so this highlights that dual responsibility again. It's critical. First, you need a solid procedure for keeping your own data up to date, obvious but needs doing. Second, and just as vital, you need to formally verify the currency in any data the customer gives you. And it's not just a handshake deal. You need proof, written confirmation from them, or the work order itself has to state the specific amendment status to use, or you need proof you're on their distribution list for updates. No guesswork allowed.
And the related AMC 14145.A.45G, adds more on the process. It says, to keep data up to date, a procedure should be set up to monitor the amendment status of all data and maintain a check that all amendments are being received by being a subscriber to any document amendment scheme. End quote. And it adds a crucial focus. Special attention should be given to mandatory instructions and associated airworthiness limitations published by design approval holders.
Yeah, that AMC details the ongoing grind, doesn't it? You need a procedure to constantly monitor amendment statuses for everything. Verify you're getting all the updates, maybe by subscribing directly to the amendment services. And that special attention bit is key mandatory instructions, ADs, airworthiness limitations from the designers. Those are top priority. They affect the plane's fundamental safety and must be integrated immediately.
So, as a practical example, your organization probably gets regular updates for its own manuals via subscription. That's your internal system sorted. But when you take on a job from an airline using their maintenance program data, you can't just assume it's current. You might need to specifically request written confirmation from the airline saying, yes, this data is fully up to date. Or the work order they issue must clearly state, use revision 12 of the manual or whatever the current status is. That way, everyone knows you're working from the latest verified information no matter who owns it. Safety and compliance depend on it.
Absolutely. So the essential point here is that robust procedures for tracking amendments are vital, especially for those mandatory items and airworthiness limitations. And as we've hammered home, customer data currency must be explicitly verified through one of those defined methods. It's all about ensuring outdated information never creeps into the maintenance process. Okay, that wraps up our deep dive into 145.A.45 for today. In the next session, we will cover 145.A.47, production planning.
You've been listening to Phoenix Way Academy, where aviation knowledge takes flight. Until next time, keep your skills sharp and your standards high.